Hi, and welcome to Matcha with Murad, where I, Murad, talk to other creatives about their process, what drives them to make their art, and anything else we find interesting along the way. So join me here every week for a new and inspiring story, and sometimes a quick heart-to-heart from yours truly. You are listening to Matcha with Murad. On this week's episode of Matcha with Murad, we have Iris Marlowe, who is a singer and songwriter with the two albums out, Savannah and Winter Solace, as well as two singles, Home and Need Me. She is working on her third album right now, and she has said she has written over 1,000 songs. So I am so excited to talk to her all about independent artist things. So if you could welcome to the show, Iris Marlowe.
By the way, Sleepwalking on a Beach is such a bop.
Thank you. Oh my God.
When I listen to it, it's kind of like it sounds like it could be in like a movie trailer. Like
it's very cinematic.
Yeah. And it's like very like, I mean this in the best way possible, dark pop, which I love. It's got like that dark pop. And I love like when you mention a red dress, it reminds me of Summertime Sadness a little bit.
That's what it reminds me of. Yeah. I actually put that lyric in there kind of like as an ode to that song. So that's really
gosh, that's instantly what I thought of. I was like, oh, hello, Miss Lana.
Yeah, Lana vibes for sure. That's so funny. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's that song I really would love to get placed in something one day because I feel like that's where it belongs. Like it
has like the perfect like movie trailer sound to like almost like it sounds like it could be like a young adult novel adaptation. Like it sounds like it would be like in that kind of soundtrack to me.
I hope so. Actually, that EP I just wanted to put out and like because I was just never going to release any of those songs. And I was like, you know what? Like
I'm so glad you did because Sleepwalking on a Beach is like, it's so perfect. Like, I can also picture like it playing in like gay bars and stuff. And like, I don't know. I was like, this song has such like, I don't know. It has like a really good quality. All the songs are so good on it though. But that one is like my favorite.
I love that everybody has a different favorite too. Like everybody's like, I like Out of Love or I like Own Shit or I like Sleepwalking. And I'm like, okay, that's a good sign. Cause that means it really does like branch out to different people, you know, it's like speaking, it's not like all of them suck. And then one of them, everyone's like, this is the one.
No. And they all sound so sonically different too, which is nice.
Yeah. They're like same, but different, I guess, in a way, but it'll be funny when I put out my next project to see like how, cause some of those are like 2 years old. So,
oh, wow.
They're going to sound a lot different now, you know, like things have changed. Yeah. All right, let's do this. Okay, cool. Enough about me. So I want to start with, by the way, I'm using my like Apple.
So am I.
Okay, good. It might actually sound good because someone was using them the other day and it sounded great. And I was like, I'm going to do that next time and see.
It makes me stay a little grounded, so I'm not moving as much because I'm more aware that there's like a little microphone right here.
Have you seen people on TikTok and they have the literal miniature microphone? I'm like, where do I get that?
I've been wanting to get one of those too.
Yes, probably Amazon, I'm sure. So, when did you get into music? Because I've never talked to you about this.
I was actually so excited because I was like, I actually don't talk much about like songwriting or like where I got into music or things like that. So anyway, sorry, finish your question.
Yeah, exactly. Like we've never talked about it. So when did you get into music? Was it an all of your life thing? Or was it like a later realization?
So my grandma taught piano for a long time. And my mom was like, you have to learn piano. You're going to take lessons from grandma. I hated piano. I took it for 10 years. I took it from age 3 to 13, never was good at it, hated it, thought I was really bad at music. And then I kind of, I wanted to play guitar for so long. And my parents were kind of like, oh, this is going to be like karate where you're going to go one day and you're going to hate it and you're going to retire. And I think I was about like 16 when I started taking guitar lessons. And from that moment on, I was like, all I want to do is play music. And I took like a little break when I was in college and did a major that was so uninteresting that I kind of was like, oh, I hate this too. And then I eventually got back to music around the age of 24 And that's when I started kind of actually writing songs that were like good and worth hearing. And now I'm like 29 and I have 2 albums and a third one on the way. So it was kind of like, I think I needed that time to kind of get back into just writing songs that had meaning and having experience to back up those songs. Because if I would have just stayed in music from like age of 3, I can't imagine I would be writing the way that I did now, which is kind of weird, but it did come back eventually.
So many things like sparked my brain in that little, like, I love that you didn't get back into it till you were 24. That's so inspiring, because I think we'll get to that later, but I think there's like a weird culture about you have to do it when you're young now.
Oh my gosh, I've noticed that. Even when I put out my first album, I was 27, which is like, you know, elderly at this point to some people, but
yeah,
I remember, one of my friends even wrote me and they're like, I just think it's so great that even that you're older, you're putting out music. And I'm like, music doesn't have an age, you know, like what in the world is like, I don't understand like this weird notion.
I do not get it. And I was with my friend we have like an art thing here in Kansas City, and we were there last night and we were talking to an artist and about this exact thing. And my friend was like, yeah, Van Gogh didn't start painting until he was like 36 or 38 or something. So I'm like, why would we put an age on art? And I guess it's just, honestly, when you get down to it, I guess it's the fact that honestly, like, we're women and we're viewed as like, you have to be young and beautiful. And it goes really deep, but it's so stupid. So that's like my attention.
You only have things to say when you're a certain age group. And I actually find that each year that I get older, I'm actually writing even better. Like the songs I wrote at 22 and 23 have like little to no substance compared to what I'm writing now, because I've had the maturity and like experience to back it up. And not saying that you can't be young and writing, you know, fantastic songs or things like that. But I find that there is a weird age expectation. And
yes, very true.
It's just so ingrained in like our society that no one questions like men being on tour in their like 50s, you know, but women are like, you know, once we're 30, they're like, oh, she's done. She's washed up. And it's such a weird thing because I feel artistically I'm better than I've ever been at the age of 29. And I think that's just going to continue up as I get older, kind of thing.
I think, and we were talking about this on Instagram a little bit the other day, but I really think that our age group is going to shift that narrative, because we're all so different than the, I guess, age groups before us. Like you think of like the boomers and stuff, like they're just different. Like their spirit is different than ours. So I feel like by the time we get to our 50s, it's going to be like, you know, we're going to be like, fuck that. Like we're going to be like on the top of a mountain in our like, you know what I mean? We're just going to be so much more like free spirited and young. And we're going to probably like draw attention to ageism and be like, fuck that. I guarantee you. So I really hope that that's keeps happening. And I get the same anxiety that I'm like too old. And I'm like, what? And I have to like, I really have to stop myself, because it's like a negative like pattern that my brain's like, well, you're too old. Like you're out of luck. And
I'm not kidding. I had those thoughts starting at the age of 22. Like
I had those thoughts at 18. That's why I'm like, I'm a crazy person.
I remember being so scared to turn 20. And then I kind of like got down to the thought of it. And I was like, why are you scared to turn 20? Like that's your lifespan is like, people live to like 100 now. You're taking like, you think like a fourth, a fifth of your life is, you think that that's done now? Like I just, it's so crazy.
It's crazy and it's not okay. So like we have to start figuring out a way to reverse that. Like just showing people successful or just making being older, I guess, more appealing, because like marketing and advertisements and like honestly just like the world has made it seem like such a bad thing. So it's like, that's why we're scared of it, is because like in culture, it's cool to be young and hip. Like I see what you're saying. Like I'm going to be 26 and I feel like I'm developing so much more, so much more. Like I really
Yeah.
do have such a clear vision of like where I want to go and how I want to change as an artist and go in different
And
directions. So
and I'm telling you, you're at the age where that kind of like, because I was writing at 24 and I wrote my first album when I was about like, I want to say I wrote most of the songs for my first album when I was like 26.
mhm.
And there was just something at the age of 26 that like flipped a switch and I just became the most creative and like innovative in music that I had been. So you're at the age where I feel like there's like a maturity that comes with the music you start writing and you're unstoppable from this age forward. And as soon as I stopped of caring, like there's a quote by Prince where I'm going to mess it up, but he said that he doesn't remember how old he is because he stays youthful by not focusing on how old he is.
Yeah.
And
like
once I
that.
heard that quote, I was like, why do I care so much? Like, I'm not making, especially like the focus I was putting on like age and stuff at the time was so bizarre to me because I'm not trying to be the demographic of like 13 to 18-year-olds. You know what I mean? So why do I
Mhm.
care that I'm 27, 28, 29 making music? So it's like I don't have to cater to a certain demographic. I don't have to stay youthful. Like I can cater to any age range. I don't have to be so hyper focused on an age range that's so youthful. I
Yes.
guess.
Yes. And I think like what I thought about when you said that once you reached a certain age, I have to say like my confidence in the last year has changed and evolved
Mm-hmm.
so much in 1 year. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even know what's going to happen by next year
Oh
because
my gosh, just get ready because I'm not kidding. 26 and up, amazing. Like
yeah,
each year, I feel like I've gotten more confident too. And it all started at 26. Like
yeah,
that's when it just like went up. Cause you start questioning why you care about so many societal expectations and you realize that you deep down actually don't care about them. So you start to live a more authentic version of yourself. And that's when I'm like so excited for you because like 26 was like the start of like such a great like uprise. And I feel like that's going to be like you too, because you're already questioning kind of like, why do we care so much on age when I'm already making the best art I'm doing? Like age doesn't matter kind of
exactly.
thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've already been questioning it a whole bunch. So I think you're right. I think it is. I think it truly is like artist confidence. And the authenticity is huge because I started songwriting when I was 20. I mean, I songwrote forever, but I like I have a similarity to you in where I love what I went to school for, but I still don't know if I truly see myself doing it as my career.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really helped me with my music because I did audio engineering. So now I can
Perfect.
record my own music at home and it's really nice, because I have the equipment to do it. But yeah, I still would rather be the artist. And so my switch was
Yep.
like at 22, right when I graduated. And right when I made that choice, everything like came together for me. I met my like my music partner in crime, my producer, and I got the job that was like able to actually fund the whole thing. And so
Wow, that's
it
amazing.
was weird. Yeah, it was weird. But
That's like a sign. That's a sign that everything came together,
oh yeah,
that you
it
were supposed to be
was.
doing this.
And it's not easy. It's still not easy at all, but it was like just like kind of like, I guess, meant to be. And even then I was still trying to find my sound and my authenticity. And I'm still looking for that, but I feel like I'm so much closer.
Mm-hmm.
So I can hear that in your music and I can see that. Like I was going to tell you, I can see, like, I feel like your confidence has grown a lot in the last year,
Oh, for sure.
like a lot.
Like,
But I have a whole question about that. So what did you study in college?
oh my gosh, this, oh, so dumb. Like, so I went to school initially because I wanted to go to fashion design.
Mm,
And I was a little eccentric and strange, and I kind of didn't fit in exactly to the fashion department. So I went to the costume design department, and I really, really liked it. And my mom was not my mom, but like kind of family members were like, you should get a backup just in case. So I also did radio. I don't know. I was like, maybe I like to talk. So why not do radio? So my degree is in radio and costume design, which is like two of the most obscure ways to get jobs in the entire world. And I don't know, like 20-year-old me, because I always wanted to do music, but like there is that kind of notion that you should go to college and you should get a degree. And like, I felt not pressured. I did want to go to school, but I didn't know what for, because I had so many interests. So I kind of was just like, well, I like music, so I should just do radio. And I was super bad at it. In the sense that I just didn't really have like the qualities of what would be good for like a radio DJ. And then I found kind of everything else in the radio aspect to be a little like not interesting to me, kind of like making commercials and like setting up kind of music slots and stuff. But I thought because I love music, it would be right for me. And then I graduated and I was like, well, I'm just going to do costume design for a bit. And I went to LA for a bit, worked in costume design. And then I kind of had this realization that like I was doing all these things to have a more normal life path, I guess. And I was like, I just want to go back to Chicago and like try to make music and like get back into doing that, because that's what I really care about. So I did all like, so yes, in short, not in short, because that was a long explanation, but I did go to school for radio and costume design, which is a very odd combination.
That's the best thing I've ever heard. Where did you go to school at?
I went to school at Columbia College.
So did I. Okay. I was like, when you were mentioning like the things you were doing, I was like, she went to Columbia for sure.
I did.
That's the only school that would be like, you should get a radio and costume degree.
Exactly. They were like, oh my gosh, you're going to be so good at this. And from time to time, I kind of call it clown college, because I just kind of was like a little clown, like bouncing from major to major. Like I, at one point, because I was like, well, I kind of like acting. I'll just take an acting class. So they put me in this body movement class. And it was, honestly, I get mortified even thinking about it, because I had to like interpretive, like move and stuff. And I am just the most calculated like internal person, that a class like that was pure torture to me, because I was like, like trying to come up with dance moves on the spot. And I just like, Columbia was such a weird experience, because it was like classes that were super, like not exactly tied to what you need to be doing kind of things.
Don't even get me started. So I'm going to ask this because I know what my answer is. If you could go back in time.
Oh no. Okay.
Would you still get a college degree?
No. I probably would have gone, well, definitely would not have gone to art school, but I probably would have maybe done like a 2-year program to be a dental hygienist or something. Because I'm one of those weirdos that likes going to the dentist.
I do like the dentist.
But I feel like Columbia gave me certain skills and certain things, but overall, I didn't feel a push or direction. So a lot of it was me running around with like a chicken with my head cut off kind of thing, where all my opportunities were because I pushed for them, versus like, I felt like it was a super weird college experience, because there's not like one campus too. So you're kind of just like, you don't really interact with people who are outside of your major always. So I'm sure you are, because you were probably at the Congress building, weren't you? Is that where you were?
I was at 33 East Congress.
Yep, that's where I was too. So
because the radio is right there. Yeah,
it sure is.
That's so funny. That is so funny. Yeah, and it's funny because I was probably like a freshman when you were like finishing up.
Yeah, actually, you probably were, and I was probably like reclused in some class, because I did like 24 credit hours my last semester. So I was just like, I was like always there.
24 hours? Like 16 is normal.
Yeah, right? I did 24 because I was trying to not go to summer school.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to graduate like I don't know why. I should have just not done that. Should have just been a little bit more.
I did a semester early, but I could have done a year early. And I'm kind of like, why didn't I just do a year early? Like I had the credits for it, but I just didn't. And I'm like, what was the point of spending another like semester of money on nothing? Like I was just scared. I was just scared because I was like not ready, because you're right. I don't feel like we got prepped in the same way for like the real world. And we were just kind of told the whole time, like, well, it'll work out. Like you're following your dreams, do what you love. And I'm like, okay. I know it's my responsibility to find these opportunities, but how do I even start? Like looking for them.
I remember not even knowing how to write a resume when I graduated. Like that's something that should be. Yeah. I was like, Google. I was like, how to write resume.
I just took a Skillshare class on writing resumes because I'm like, I still don't know anything. Like I just like it's true. And I even did internships, and every single one of them, they were like, we love you and you're the best intern we've had in like however long, but we don't have the money to hire you. And so I'm like, yeah, it's just hard. It's hard being an artist. It really is.
Oh my gosh. And it looks so like fun and interesting from an outside perspective, but there's a lot of like constant turmoil, I think, that comes with being, especially like you understand because you're an independent artist too. There's just a lot that you have to do that people don't even realize. And it takes so much time.
It takes so much time. And it really does, like, as an artist in the first place, I feel like our motivation's like this. And so to have to be your own, this is actually one of my questions is like, what is your experience like being an independent artist? So we can talk about that now.
Oh, okay, great.
But your motivation goes up and down, and now you're trying to be a business woman. You're being a marketing person. You're being an artist, a creative. And then you're like, it's just so many different hats at once all the time.
Yeah. I think, especially because each album I've done, like the first album I made, I had no experience whatsoever. So I put it out with not really a lot of preparation. I had no idea what I was doing. And I didn't even put out a lead single. I just was like, here's the album. And I wanted to, each time I've done like a kind of like project, I wanted to be better at what I'm doing. And with this album, I feel because I have such high expectations, I've taken on even more roles. And it's so taxing because a lot of the creative side of you has to kind of be silenced in order to project yourself and get yourself out there. And there's constant like emails, preparation, planning, like booking your own shows, booking video shoots, booking photo shoots, like mixing, mastering stuff, like studio time. And it's all
so
coming
expensive
out of,
too.
Yes, it's all out of your own pocket. And I think people that don't work in the industry, they think just listening to your song like once is enough. And it's like, that's just like not like it's so hard because I think people consume so easy and they don't see how much goes behind like that one piece of art. And being an independent artist is kind of like realizing that you're going to work so hard and it doesn't always exactly pay off, but it's worth what you're doing because you have passion behind it. So you have to keep that passion ignited while you're doing all these taxing things that I would just rather not be doing, which is like constantly writing emails, like sending out your own music. And it's just, it doesn't sound like a lot of work, but it is. And you're constantly having to fit the mold of what's going on too. Like you have to keep track of kind of ways to get yourself heard and out there. So like the constant shift in how music is consumed and how people listen to music and how people find you. And like what people are gravitating towards in their listening. So there's like different social media aspects that you have to consider. And then you have to also be approachable. You have to be, I find that like the way that you try to connect to people, like I want to be authentic, and that's hard to do when you're coming from like, you want to sell your music at the same time. So there's like all these weird things that go through my mind with every single project I go through. And I'm sure you understand too. And it's just, I don't want to be doing anything else, but it is hard at the same time because a lot of the work that you do is like unseen. You know what I mean?
You were preaching to the choir. Like everything you said, I feel so like down to the core. Yes, it's exhausting. And you go through this social media battle where you're an artist. So you don't feel like you should be constantly on social media selling yourself. And half the time you're like in an inner battle with like, if you're even being authentic to yourself. And then you're spending all your money for people to listen to your song for 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes. And then they're just like, oh, cool. And they go on with their life, which is great. But you have to really, really enjoy doing all of it, even the hard stuff. Even when it does suck, you still weirdly enjoy it. Otherwise, there is no point because, I told myself a long time ago, I'm going to do music whether or not like it ever becomes my full-time career. If I have to work in a bar for the rest of my life, I will, because I love music so much. And obviously I want it to become my full-time career. That is for sure the goal. But, you know, I took that like inner like deal with myself, I guess, to make sure I'm doing it for the right reasons. So I feel like if you are an independent artist, that's the battle, is like this constant feeling of like you could be doing 100 other things, to be like, you could be making content, you could be emailing people, you could be engaging on social media, you could be planning a photo shoot or a video shoot, or even just making money to go towards like whatever it is you need to pay for.
Going on tour, like saving up money for things like that. But it's hard because you're paying for a million other things.
everything. But at the same time, I'm kind of at this place where I'm like, you know what? I would rather be paying for it myself than having any other either label support or like investor support until I'm like a little more ready for that. If I'm in a better place for that in the future, then I might consider it. But right now I'm like, this feels safer to me. This feels more like.
And you have more control and a say in what your product is. So that's also important too. And that's actually a huge benefit of being independent, is you have no one really telling you no, in the sense of like, while you are like in total control of like your creative outlet and things like that, there isn't anyone interjecting, telling you what you should and shouldn't do, which is like the huge benefit of being independent. And you have total, like you can release it whenever you want. You can like make the theme whatever you want. And it's just, that's like the really big benefit of being an independent artist, is like you can essentially make your music the exact way you want to without anyone telling you otherwise. It would be nice though to have like more help as an independent artist, but I'm like, at this point, I'm like you, I'm like, I'm fine with sacrificing, like having an entire team help me, because I get to kind of do exactly what I'm looking for in that aspect.
Yes, because I have like paid people to do things before that in hindsight, I was like, you know what, like I actually would rather do that myself. I feel like that my money didn't really go to that great of a cause, because you like social media, for example, like I've done that and then been like, you know what, like I feel like I could have honestly done this if I just really sat down and focused for a few hours a week. I could do it. And at this point, I'm willing to do that just to make sure it's done the way I want it done. So yeah, I totally get that. And it would be really nice. The only thing about a label that would be nice is they already know what they're doing. Like with, like they have a formula that works.
Yeah.
So it's like you can kind of trust them a little bit more. But the other big thing is, as an independent artist, you can also look and sound how you want to, because when you do like a full 360 deal, they have control over how you look and what your music sounds like too. So I feel like we're in a great position, honestly, to be growing as artists, like on our own.
I think like we're making, and I'm going to speak for you on this, but we're working on projects that are going to be our best at this moment. You know what I mean? So we have total control over how we present that to the world. And that's something that's like a beautiful thing. And I would rather have that versus like a team telling me that I can't do my like exact vision.
Exactly.
But you did post a video the other day on your stories that I watched, and it was about like people saving your like songs to like playlist and like how the Spotify algorithm works and stuff like that. And I thought that was a super interesting video because I think a lot of people don't realize that even just like saving people's music can like help them in like a major way. And I just think that there's so many unseen things that people who don't make music don't realize. And I was just like, oh, this is such an interesting video. Cause even I didn't realize when you posted it, that's how like your music shows up on other people's playlists. Like I had no idea. And I've been doing music for a while now. I had no idea. So.
Yeah. I actually researched it because I was like, because I put this demo EP out without a lot of pre-planning because it was kind of a last minute thing before we put out the new projects, hopefully before November. So hopefully this.
Yay! That would be awesome.
I don't know. We'll see, because again, I have to make sure I have a certain amount of weeks ahead of time. So it'll probably be like early November. But yeah, so because of that, I had to do a little bit more research on organic ways to like improve the numbers, because I didn't have a way to put it into like Spotify's certain playlists that you can like submit to before the song comes out. So yeah, I was surprised because I didn't realize that follows matter the most for Spotify.
Yeah.
I figured it was like playlisting and saves, but it's actually follows, which just because it's a music platform. So I didn't think how many followers you had mattered as much as like how many listens you have, but it does, because that's how they throw you onto other people's playlist, I guess, that are similar to the people following you. I don't know. But I was like, wow, okay, didn't know this. And I think it's a really good idea to post on your social media stuff. Like I have a TikTok and I've been making a lot of like indie artist posts and like posting about what it's like to be an indie artist. And I think it's good because people really don't know. They truly, they can't even imagine, honestly, if they're not like musical at all, what it's like to be juggling being a musician and like running your own small business at the same time, like with your
and working full-time. Because like as much as I would love to have music as my full-time job, that is not my full-time job. So I have to like it's almost like having two full-time jobs at the same time. So you're like working a job that isn't necessarily like your dream, and you're trying to support your dream. So it's like you have to go through these kind of like taxing hours of like working in a position that isn't your dream to support your dream. And a lot of like time and effort goes into, you know, your day job essentially kind of thing, which is, you know, there are like, I think people know that being an artist is hard, and there kind of is a mindset of, well, they chose to do that. So being an artist is hard, but it is a lot more difficult than I think like people have understandings of.
Way more difficult. Yeah. And they're just like, oh, well, they're like making it by, they have another job too, so they'll be okay. I'm like, listen, I am so tired of serving. Like I can't serve for another year. I can't do it. So now I'm in this like, well, do I keep pursuing audio engineering too? Or do I just dive so deep into my music that, you know, it's that inner battle again of like, do I stay authentic or do I go get a job that makes me real money? And then maybe it takes a bunch of time away from my art, because something I love about serving is my schedule is great and I make pretty good money for having that kind of schedule, you know? So
I honestly think you should keep serving, because you're still at a point where you have like a huge drive, and I think you should be focusing, because you're very talented. So like you should keep that focus on music. If you don't want a job that like, it's better to have a job that you go home and don't think about versus like having a job that consumes all your time when you're home and when you're at like an office. So like you and I are both lucky in that aspect where we go home and we don't necessarily have to think about our jobs like when we're home. But if you were to get a job that would pay a lot more money, that would be quite the opposite. So like you have like so much drive, and like I know how hard you work because I see all your stories, and like you're constantly always working on things. And I think that you should definitely stay focused on that. Like because you're at this point where you're going to be making your best work and you don't want to distract yourself with a job that's going to consume you.
That's a great point. That really is, because mental energy is just the same as physical energy. And when a job's taking everything out of you, you're like exhausted. So, and I'm the kind of person, like, I overthink everything. So it is much better that I have a job that I show up. I love the people I work with. Like, when you serve, you always work with the coolest, most creative people. That's the best thing about that job. And then, you know, you get through it and you get really lucky some nights and you're like, yes, like you just feel like you're, you know, killing it. But you don't have to go home and be like, oh, I got to finish this project, or I have this deadline, because I already have enough music deadlines. Let's be real.
Yeah, really.
So that's very true.
Oh, I had a question for you.
Okay. I love how this is like a dual interview. I feel like
because I don't get to talk to like I don't really talk a lot about songwriting, because like when you're out and about playing, like you don't get to talk about this kind of stuff. And since you just released a project that you said these were demos, I was curious that if you, when you look back and listen to these old songs, does it feel like almost, like, do you feel removed from these like lyrics and things that you wrote because they are a bit older? And when you put them out, do you feel, because you're working on things that you're really excited for, do you feel like there's a lack of like yourself in these lyrics, or do you feel like you've changed significantly in the like how you write or how you work since you've released this?
So with the demo EP, I think that was the scariest thing about releasing it for me, is that I've grown. I think I've grown a lot as a writer. So I was like, these sound young. Yeah. Like Sleepwalking sounds the least young to me. But that's like, they're so like hip hoppy and sassy. And I was going through a breakup at the time, and I was like on top of the world. And I was just in such a different place. And it to me, like, that would be my own critique of this project, is like, it sounds young because it is young. It is me younger. And I still love the songs enough that I put them out. But I do think that I feel I would say I feel somewhat removed, but when I listen to them, it does take me back to that time.
Right? Isn't that
Does
so
that make
weird?
sense? Yeah, it's like nostalgic for me, and music has always been nostalgic for me. Like, I have this thing where, for some reason, when I'm traveling, I always end up like finding a new album and then just listening to that album so much. And then it always reminds me of that trip. It's like, that's what my own music is doing for me right now. Cause I'm like, oh, these are so, I remember where my headspace was and how I was feeling. And that was right when I finally was like, I'm an artist, and I made that switch. And so my energy was even higher. I was even more like elevated at the time. And now I'm kind of simmered down and like more of an artist, because I'm more just like here, you know, it's not so naive anymore. But yeah. So you have written over 1,000 songs. I read that on your website.
Oh my website. I forgot about it the other day, and I was like, oh, I should update it. That's like, that website's from my first album. I totally forget that I have a website. I need to like go through and like completely renovate it. But I looked the other day and it was 1,800 songs, which seems like like I was like, where's the time gone? And I was like listening again to some like the old songs I wrote and reading some of the old lyrics. And it's so interesting when you're a little older and you look back at the things you were writing at like 24 and 25. And I'm like, I'm like a little embarrassed. Like, I'm a little embarrassed.
I have to say one funny story. In college, me and my friends all got out our songwriting books, or I think I just grabbed mine, and they were all in the living room. And I started talking my old lyrics from like when I'm like 17.
Oh no.
As a monologue. And I have like my voice. I'm like, I'm sitting here thinking. And we were crying. It was so funny. Like, going back is hilarious. But anyways, keep going.
and like some of the lyrics I was writing, I was like, who are you like trying to be? And I think when I was younger, when I was writing, I was like super influenced by certain people, and I wasn't like emulating them exactly, but I was like trying to like find my place. And so like when you're trying to find like who you are and like what you're like kind of sound and aesthetic is, you go through really like terrible drafts of like songs that you write. And I was like, wow, I'm so glad none of these saw the light of day. Like they aren't even like worth, there's like out of 1,800, like I break it down, I'm like out of 1,800 songs, maybe 200 of them are really, really good. And then there's probably another like 300 that are, you know, workable. There's things you can do with them. And then the rest are like, no, mortifying, like never see the light of day. Like, what are you doing? So like, I found that like how I've written so many songs is just like, I used to have this goal where I'd write 3 to 5 songs a day, and they could be really bad. They could be really good, but like, it was more of a, like, I had this mindset of, if you don't practice it, you might not get better kind of vibe. So I just wrote 3 to 5 songs every day. So there are tons of songs that are just trash. Like they're like, throw them in the bin. But I think because I was experimenting with kind of different like layouts of songs and kind of different genres, I think it helped me become more well-rounded, because I started noticing things that were being repeated in my songs or things that weren't, I should like break away from. But yeah, my very outdated website that I totally forgot about now. It did. I think it's and also I had no idea what to write for the bio of it. So I just wrote like, wow, I need to go through. I'm actually going to, when we get off this, I'm just going to like go and reread it, because I'm sure I'm going to be embarrassed by like how old that website is.
No, seriously. My website was really rough, and I got very lucky. And one of my friends offered to do mine for her portfolio. And I got so lucky because she did a killer job. But my website before that was really, really bad. So yours is not.
Your new website's good though. I looked at it wow, when you first got it like fixed, the photos of you on it are so glamorous.
Thank you.
I was like, oh my gosh.
So one of my songs coming out is called Something New, and I made a music video to it. And so those photos go with that music video. So I'm really excited.
That's exciting.
I literally filmed it last March.
I remember you posting stories or something of you with like the set and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's been kind of a long story. Like I've made a lot of songs recently too, and we were going to put out a whole project, and then we decided we needed to rework some of them. They weren't going in the direction we wanted anymore. They almost got overdone. And so we were like, okay. We came back and we were like, you know what, let's put out the demo EP for now.
Yeah.
Give people something to listen to. And we wanted to put it out anyways. And so now we're like kind of almost done reworking things. But yeah, so that's kind of the long story short. And that song sounds completely different now, which is going to be very interesting. Because the arrangement is still exactly the same, so it should match up with the music video still, but it's going to be funny because I filmed it to a completely different song than it is now. So it's going to be very interesting, but yeah, so I can't believe that you made 3 to 5 songs a day.
Yeah.
So tell me about your writing process. Because this podcast really is about finding out people's process. And so so like your artistic process, like what do you do before you write a song, and does it just happen? Like are you like, okay, I'll throw it on my phone really quick just to meet my goal today? Or do you sit down with your guitar and like, how do you write music? Because that's already a process in itself.
Well, so I like to break down my writing process into 2 timelines. So one is like quarantine, and then post quarantine. So a lot of like when I was writing like 3 to 5 songs a day, I used to have a job where I would walk a mile in the morning and a mile at night. And a lot of my writing would come from just having like a clear headspace, and I would hear lyrics in my head, or I would see like an idea of what a song could come from. Like I would see a story, or I would just be thinking to myself about like a beat or a certain kind of melody in my head. And then I would start writing on my phone. And it's almost like That's So Raven, where I would just be like, and it would just like come to me, like almost like as if like I was like this sounds corny, but like a vessel of like, just to write this song out. Like a lot of it would just hit me. I would hear a sound, or I'd hear like someone saying something in public that would spark kind of an idea. And so I think when I write, I try to completely finish a song when it hits me, because I don't want to come at it from two different perspectives. Like if I write a song on a Saturday and come back on Monday, I'm going to be in a different headspace, a different day, a different mindset. So I try to just sit and like crank it out. And even if the lyrics aren't great, I go back and revisit it and then change the lyrics if they need changing. But a lot of it is just like, pre-quarantine, it used to just hit me like, and I would just write it out, and it felt like easier. And post-quarantine, because I wasn't being outside as much or interacting with people as much, I had to completely change how I write. And a lot of it's more focused, and I have to like sit and almost inspire myself to do it, because a lot of the elements of what I used to write to are kind of not there anymore. So I had to kind of change how I write. And now I kind of have to not necessarily be inspired, but I find that now I'm writing less, but it's more substantial, because I'm not like distracted writing. Because I used to be like very distracted by like what's going on outside and like things like that. Now it's more like calculated, and I write a lot less now. So I used to write 3 to 5 songs a day. Now it's maybe once every other week, I'll write a song that I think is worth working on. And I think that also comes, I'm really bad at like remembering quotes, but the quote was something along the line of, when you become better at something, you become more critical of your own work, and your work gets better because you're spending less time on things that you aren't as interested in. So like if I start a song and I realize it's not worth it, I'll leave it aside, and I'll like work on songs that deserve more of my time and attention. But it's really weird how writing now, because quarantine has like significantly impacted how I create music. It's just extremely different. And I get inspired more by stories and kind of make believe scenarios versus things. I used to get inspired by also like things happening to me or things happening around me. And now I almost like create stories versus like taking experiences, which is like very different of how I used to write pre-quarantine. I had to kind of like start creating stories because I wasn't even like seeing very many people or interacting with people as much. So it heavily changed how I write, which is a different experience. But I've written my best work in quarantine. It just has taken longer, which is weird to me, to go from 3 to 5 songs to like 1 every other week or something.
Right. Do you still feel like you get that spark every once in a while where it feels like it just comes out of you and you're like, where did that come from? Or do you think that
I do get the spark, and it's a great feeling because I'm like, oh, I know it's there still. So if I were to change up what I'm doing day to day, that will come back, because I do feel that from time to time. And sometimes I'll like read a story, or I'll hear something like in the news, or I'll like see something online, and it kind of does that like spark of something. So it does still happen, just not as frequent. And it did freak me out for a little bit, because I was like, what if I like can't write anymore? Mm-hmm. And then I realized that I'm writing my best. It just takes a little bit longer. But I also like have to realize I have all these other songs too. Like I don't have to always just be making new. I could like go back and rework on all these songs that I've already written.
Which they do kind of deserve that. I think about that too, because me and King have like over 200 now together. And we like, there's one part of me that just wants to like completely move forward and go with a new direction. Mm-hmm. And another part of me that's like, you know, these deserve to be looked at again. And they have potential. So why not give them like life, you know, let them be an amazing song. So I get that for sure.
And you could also, those songs, even though I feel like songs I look back on that I wrote like 1 or 2 years ago, they don't really mean anything to me now,
Mm-hmm.
but they could mean something to somebody else, which is like interesting. You should make music for yourself, but then there's also that part where like maybe it doesn't resonate with you now, but revisiting old songs to incorporate them into new projects could be beneficial because it could help somebody or like give somebody some sort of outlet, which is like important too. So it's hard. I don't want to always just move on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've done a lot more like revisiting old songs recently because I was like, maybe there is some other sort of song that I can like put towards a future project that is something I wrote like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay. So you have Savannah and then you have Winter Solace. Those are your first 2 albums, right?
Yeah.
And this is the 3rd one that you're working on now?
Yep.
And you've had how many singles? You've had singles sprinkled in there too, like Home.
I did. So Home's going to be on the next album, but I'm kind of like, because like the state of the world too, I'm not sure when to release the album. So I'm going to take a little bit of time with this release. So there's going to be a 2nd single coming out in October or late October or early November. And then there's a 3rd single that I'm hoping will come out in like January. And then I'm hoping to release it in early spring, but it kind of just depends on like, I want to be able to go on like a little tour and things like that. And I want to make sure it's safe. So I'm going to kind of like sprinkle in these little singles and stuff. But I did have a couple of singles. I love pop music, which I know like it, like sometimes there's like a weird notion about pop music, especially when like you're a musician, like people discredit pop music way too much. Like I think pop music is glorious. So I did make a couple of like pop singles because I love pop music. And there's a couple of other singles like I released over the summer that are a little bit like sad girl vibes, just kind of like just old songs from like my little like collection and stuff like that. But I definitely am going to put more focus on making these singles really interesting and like fun and then release the album eventually. But yeah, I do enjoy singles. I think they're really fun because it kind of is like a little preview of like projects you're working on.
Yeah. And it's just like a little flavor of you, right? Like it's like, boop, I'll leave this here. You can decide what you want to about it. And you don't have to put out a whole project. And
it's a little, it's easier on your wallet.
Yes, that's very true.
Engaged.
That's very true.
I like dabble in the pop music. I love pop music. Like
I'm excited to hear that because the music I've heard from you so far has been more singer-songwritery. It brings in like your 60s music a lot. I feel like it kind of blends the 2 worlds. Almost, I don't want to say country because it's not.
No,
country.
it is. Well, I mean, the next album is a full-on Western country.
Really?
Album.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is just a random, this is kind of like a little story tidbit, but the first album, there is a single country song on it, like full on authentically country. And my sound engineer, he was like, you know what, you should make a country album. And at the time I was like, no, why would you even say that? I'm not going to. And then the second album came along and there's another, the opening track was like a full on like country Western song. It's like super hardcore and like heavy. And I kind of was like, oh, maybe I should like do a country project because like I seem to really actually enjoy writing country music. I grew up in the country, but I kind of always not denounced country music, but I love like old classic country. And I didn't want to make like a modern sounding country record. So the third album is actually funny that you mentioned it. It is a full on like Western country album.
Oh my God, I'm ready. But with pop sprinkled in?
So I will say that Home is the most normal sounding song. Like it's like the ballad. It was the song that I wrote last for the record. It's it's like the more normal sounding song. And the next single that's coming out like either late October, early November, it's very Western. Like there's like a boom, boom. Like it's
ready.
And it's, I guess I'll just say the title because it doesn't, but it's called Cowboy Chords. So it's like straight up like very Western sounding, and it's like a love song, but then all the other songs are very weird. Like they sound nothing like the first two singles. And I'm really excited because it's a lot of like hard Western, spaghetti Western kind of sounds, like classic Westerns, like guitar playing and kind of subjects. And there's like a storyline in it too. So it's super cool, and I'm so excited. But the singles, I'm like sprinkling in the normal ones first. I'm like, these are the only normal songs, and then everything else is super weird. So you're just along for the ride. Like,
I am so excited, and I'm excited by how excited you are. Like it makes me, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to hear this. Wow. And okay.
I think I also wanted to make, cause like I grew up in the country. I grew up on a farm. And so I noticed a lot of like modern country, not everybody, because it's kind of changing. Like there are artists like Orville Peck and, you know, like Casey Musgraves and artists along that tier that are kind of changing country music and like including more people. But I wanted to also make country music that wasn't about beer or trucks or
my God,
you know,
yes.
like guns. Like I wanted to make country music that was like back to like the roots of almost like good versus evil, love songs. Like just, I wanted to have country music that wasn't so like a parody of itself. And sometimes I feel like modern country is almost like a parody of itself at times. Like some of the like pop country that's like about beer and trucks and like partying and stuff. I wanted to have like country music that was no mention of beer, like
or tractors,
or tractors, or like
trucks.
Like I don't know, because when I was younger, country music that I gravitated to was like Patsy Cline and like Johnny Cash and like Merle Haggard and of course Dolly Parton. Like hello,
of course, yes.
But a lot of like their music was like storytelling, which was like super fascinating to me as a kid. And I feel like when I grew up, like when I got to like junior high, the kind of like country songs I was hearing was like songs I was just like so disinterested in. And I started to think that like I didn't like country music. And then I kind of got to the production of like the third album. And I was like, I want to make country music that my grandpa and me would listen to like in the truck going to like school in the mornings, like stuff that has like stories and context and meaning. Not that like beer and trucks and stuff can't have meaning, but like I wanted to make country music that was a little bit more back to basics and kind of going back to using tones that were used in like early music and subject matter and kind of like have it be a little bit more inclusive. And that, because like to me is important too, to have like artists that are a little bit more like inclusive in a genre that hasn't always been super inclusive.
Exactly.
People.
And it's coming back around for sure, but it's coming back around in a really dope way. Like I know you love Orville Peck.
Oh, love.
I don't know how you feel about Casey Musgrave, but she's for sure doing that.
Her.
Yes.
Love her.
So I love that you're going in that direction because it's, I love that idea. And I'm getting more into country music now that it's not so
not
inclusive and talking about the same things and just feeling so, I don't know, like exactly where I don't want to be. Like exactly where I don't want to be. And so but old country is so good. And I love that comeback has happened and I can see it there. I really, really can.
Yeah. There's some sort of beauty that comes with like the classic tones of country that has gotten kind of lost in mainstream country music. And it's almost like modern country music doesn't want to sound country.
But yeah, I love that you're going in that country vibe. That's going to be so much fun to hear. Like, I can't wait. And I already saw that for you. So I'm glad that you just kind of like...
I embraced it eventually. Like I was like, I got to start like writing what like feels natural. And it felt super natural to me. Yeah. And I will say that there is a storyline of this album that's about like a demon that eats cowboy souls. And I swear it's really cool. It sounds weird, but it does. Like there's like a whole storyline in here. And
I'm ready.
like,
that sounds dope. That doesn't even sound weird. That sounds incredible.
So when I said that Home is like the only normal song, it literally is the only normal one. Everything else is super weird.
I'm ready. So I always do a segment of when art meets art, and you're obviously very into fashion. I don't know if I'm going to post any videos of this, but Iris is wearing a gorgeous dress right now. And every time that I'd show up to the open mic, you'd always be in some kind of amazing outfit. So how does fashion and music kind of blend for you?
Oh, fashion to me is like, I know that people like to discredit fashion because they see it as like a vanity thing, which it can be. But to me, fashion is a first impression without speaking. So I have like two kind of vibes. It's either every color thrown up on me or just black. I'm like, I kind of like.
That's so true.
I like that clothing can kind of represent how you're feeling, how approachable you are. Like, I think that especially with the music that I play, I like having fashion kind of give a message before I even go up on stage. It provides like a sense of confidence with me that back when I was younger, before I developed a sense of fashion, I lacked a lot of confidence and I didn't know how to present myself. And I think that my clothes now help me feel confident in spaces that are intimidating. Mm-hmm. And it also is a great opener. Fashion to me is just, it's such a weird thing to be so fixated on, but I think it's just a way that you present yourself to others without even needing to speak. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a very like, and it's almost artistic to me. And like, I think it's like a beautiful art form. And maybe because I did it in school, there's a lot of like thought into like color presentation and kind of eras of clothing and what it says about you. And I think fashion is becoming more like exclusive as well, which is really exciting. And I think that people are getting more expressive with their clothing. There's like a cool trend. So it allows you to be expressive, which I really enjoy. I could literally, I'm not going to talk about fashion forever, but it's like a huge passion. It's like my second passion in life. Like
I love that so much. I love fashion too. And I go through ebbs and flows where it's like, I'm really into it. And then other times where I'm just kind of slacking. And then I'm like, okay, I got to get back into this again. But you really do you've always had a really interesting style that's incredible. And you've always stayed true to like the same, like you really know what you
mm-hmm.
like. I think other people kind of follow trends a lot easier and things. And you're like, no, I know what I like. I know what works for me.
I think when I was younger, I liked trends. And then there was a point where I was like, I can't keep following trends. Cause like, developing your own sense of fashion is like the best route, because then you're dressing for yourself, which is like what's most important. Like, I don't wear these weird colors and stuff to get attention. Like, they just makes me feel the best that I could feel. Mm-hmm. And it's a huge confidence booster to like pick out an outfit that makes you feel incredible. And it helps performing too. Cause if you go up feeling confident about yourself, and like, it only excels it only makes your presentation and performance better when you have like confidence and you feel good going on stage. So I think that also is a huge reason why I dress the way I do too, is to bring confidence to the stage before performance, you know?
Yes. It is that first impression before people even hear mm-hmm. you sing. Yeah. They're like, oh, she looks fun. So I think it's a great thing to do. And then, lastly, how can this audience help support you right now?
Honestly, just take a listen to my music, and there's all different kinds of genres within each album, but also like supporting like you as well. Like just any support whatsoever towards like independent artists is needed. Like if you just listen to it, word of mouth, like you said, saving people's music, mm-hmm. just following them on Instagram, like keeping up with the algorithm of their stuff. that's like those are free things you can do,
literally.
Yeah. Like,
you don't even have to buy music anymore. You just have to listen to it.
Yeah. I just try to like encourage like free things for people, especially right now. It's hard because a lot of people are, experiencing like their jobs being lost and things because of like the pandemic. So I try to like just encourage like just taking a listen and just saving people's music, free things, to support independent artists.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on this podcast.
Thank you for having me. This was so enjoyable.
I love it so much. I feel like we're going to have to do a part 2 because I have more questions for you.
Oh my gosh. I'll come up with questions for you too.
Okay. We'll have like a dual interview next time because I want to know, you really do look like you've been doing so much good work with like your own marketing and stuff. And I would love to actually do a separate podcast about that with you.
I'm so game for that.
Okay.
I'm so game.
Well, thank you so much.
As always, thanks for listening to Matcha with Murad. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, review, or share this with your friends. Again, thanks for listening, and talk to you guys next week.